Don't come for Christmas, you're no longer part of the family, my daughter-in-law shouted over the phone. I simply replied, okay, Merry Christmas. A week later, she called me crying, you have no right to do this. This is our house. I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from, so I can see how far my story has reached. I was folding Marcus's old baby blankets when the phone rang. Such a silly thing to be doing at 64, but I'd been preparing them for my granddaughter Emma. She was only 3, but she loved wrapping her dolls in soft things, and I thought she might enjoy these during our Christmas sleepover. The caller ID showed Lilia's name. My daughter-in-law rarely called me directly anymore, usually going through Marcus when she needed something. But with Thanksgiving just 2 days behind us, maybe she was calling about Christmas plans, maybe she wanted to coordinate the menu, or ask if I could bring my famous apple pie again. Hello, Lilia. I kept my voice warm, hopeful. Don't come for Christmas. You're not family anymore. The words hit me like ice water. Her voice was sharp, cruel, nothing like the sweet tone she used around Marcus. I stood there in my living room, Marcus's baby blanket still in my hands, trying to process what I'd just heard. I'm sorry. What did you say? You heard me, Belinda. We don't want you here. Marcus and I discussed it, and we've decided you're not welcome anymore. The kids don't need your negative energy around them. My negative energy. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. For 5 years since Emma was born, I'd been nothing but supportive. I babysat every weekend, picked up Emma and little Jake from school when Lilia was too busy, helped with homework, took them to doctor appointments when both parents mysteriously couldn't make it. Does Marcus know you're making this call? Of course he does. He just doesn't want to hurt your feelings, but someone has to tell you the truth. We're tired of pretending, Belinda. Tired of walking on eggshells around you. Walking on eggshells. Around me. The woman who'd never raised her voice, never criticized their parenting, never said a word when Lilia made passive-aggressive comments about my cooking being too heavy or my gifts being not quite right for the children. I thought about last month, when I'd taken Emma school shopping because Lilia said they were a bit tight on money. $300 I'd spent on clothes and supplies, watching my granddaughter's face light up when she picked out her favorite backpack. I thought about the time I'd rushed to the emergency room when Jake fell and broke his arm, sitting in that waiting room for 6 hours because Lilia was at her book club and couldn't be reached. I see, I said quietly. Well, I hope you have a lovely Christmas. The silence on the other end stretched for several seconds. I think she'd expected me to cry, to beg, to ask what I'd done wrong. Instead, I felt something settling inside me, like a door quietly closing. That's it? Her voice sounded almost disappointed. That's it. Goodbye, Lilia. I hung up and set the phone down carefully on the coffee table. The baby blanket was still in my hands, soft yellow cotton with tiny ducks embroidered along the edges. I'd made this blanket 32 years ago when I was pregnant with Marcus, staying up late nights because I was too excited to sleep, too eager to create something beautiful for my child. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, holding something I'd made with love for the son who'd apparently decided I wasn't family anymore. I walked to my kitchen and made myself a cup of tea, my hands surprisingly steady. As I waited for the water to boil, I found myself thinking about the house Marcus and Lilia lived in. The beautiful 4-bedroom colonial on Maple Street that Lilia loved to show off to her friends. What Lilia didn't know, what Marcus had asked me never to mention, was that I was the one making those mortgage payments. Had been for 5 years now, ever since Marcus lost his job at the marketing firm and they were facing foreclosure. He'd been so ashamed, so worried about losing face in front of his wife that he'd begged me to help quietly. Just until I get back on my feet, Mom. Lilia can't know. She'd be humiliated. So I'd helped, $850 every month, directly to the bank. I'd told myself it was an investment in my grandchildren's stability, in their father's dignity. Marcus had promised to pay me back once his consulting business took off, but somehow there was always another expense, another crisis, another reason why repayment had to wait. The kettle whistled, pulling me from my thoughts. I poured the hot water over my tea bag and inhaled the chamomile scent. Calming. Peaceful. Exactly what I needed. As I sat at my kitchen table, I realized something that should have been obvious years ago. Lilia had never actually liked me. All those family dinners where she'd smile and compliment my cooking while making subtle digs about the portions being too large. All those holidays where she'd thank me profusely for my gifts while mentioning they weren't quite what she'd hoped for. All those times she'd gush about how helpful I was while somehow making it clear that my help was inadequate. I'd been so focused on being the perfect mother-in-law, so desperate to maintain my place in Marcus's life, that I'd ignored every signal that I was unwelcome in hers. But here's what really struck me as I sat there sipping my tea. I felt relieved. For the first time in 5 years, I didn't have to worry about whether Lilia approved of my outfit when I came over. I didn't have to second-guess every comment I made about the children. I didn't have to bite my tongue when she made another joke about old-fashioned grandmothers who don't understand modern parenting. The phone rang again. Marcus this time. "Mom, Lilia told me she called you. I'm so sorry. She's just stressed about Christmas, trying to make everything perfect for the kids." She didn't mean what she said. I could hear the exhaustion in his voice, the familiar sound of a man trying to keep peace between two women he loved, except only one of us actually loved him back. "It's all right, Marcus. I understand." "No, it's not all right. Look, just come on Christmas morning like we planned. Lilia will apologize and everything will go back to normal." Normal. The word tasted bitter in my mouth. Normal meant walking on eggshells. Normal meant pretending not to notice when Lilia rolled her eyes at my stories. Normal meant watching my son become smaller and smaller in his own home, constantly apologizing for his mother's existence. "I think Lilia made herself very clear, sweetheart. I won't be coming for Christmas." "Mom, please. The kids are expecting you. Emma keeps asking about the cookies you promised to make with her." That almost broke me. Emma's little face. So serious when she'd asked if we could make gingerbread men like we did last year. But I couldn't keep doing this dance. Couldn't keep pretending that my presence was welcome when it clearly wasn't. Tell Emma I love her very much, and that sometimes grown-ups have to make difficult decisions. After I hung up, I sat in my quiet kitchen for a long time, watching the afternoon light fade outside my window. Tomorrow I would start making phone calls. Tomorrow I would begin the process of untangling myself from their lives. But tonight, for the first time in years, I could breathe. The next morning, I woke up with a strange sense of purpose. For the first time in months, I didn't reach for my phone to check if Marcus or Lilia needed anything. I didn't worry about whether I should text to ask what time they wanted me to arrive for weekend babysitting. Instead, I made myself breakfast and sat down with my laptop. I had work to do. First, I called the bank. After 20 minutes of being transferred between departments, I finally reached someone who could help me. "Mrs. Patterson, I need to discuss the automatic payment arrangement for the Maple Street property." "Of course, Mrs. Patterson, you've been making those payments for, let me see, 5 years now. Very reliable. How can I help you today?" "I need to cancel the automatic transfer, effective immediately." There was a pause. "Are you sure? The next payment is due December 1st. That's just 5 days away." "I'm sure." It took another 15 minutes to complete the paperwork over the phone, but when I hung up, I felt lighter somehow. No more $850 disappearing from my account every month. No more quietly enabling a situation that had clearly gotten out of hand. Next, I drove to the mall. Not to shop for Christmas presents, those days were over, but to return the gifts I'd already bought. The expensive art set for Emma, the remote control helicopter for Jake, the cashmere scarf for Lilia that had cost me half a month's grocery budget. The customer service representative at Nordstrom was sympathetic when I explained I needed to return everything. "Holiday plans changed?" she asked gently. "Something like that. $327 back on my credit card." It felt good to see those numbers. Good to know that money would stay in my account instead of funding a Christmas where I wasn't welcome. As I was leaving the mall, my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Mom, Lilia feels bad about yesterday. She wants to talk to you." I deleted the message without responding. That afternoon, I tackled the catering situation. Last month, in a moment of what I now recognized as desperate people-pleasing, I'd hired a catering company to provide Christmas dinner for Marcus's family. Lilia had been complaining about how stressful cooking for everyone was, and I'd thought I was being helpful by quietly arranging for a full spread to be delivered Christmas morning. $2,000. That's what I'd spent to make Lilia's Christmas easier. To take one more burden off her shoulders. I'd planned to surprise them, to show up Christmas morning and act like the catering fairy had magically appeared. The catering company was understanding when I explained the situation. "We can cancel with a 24-hour penalty fee," the manager explained. "That's $400. That's fine. $1,600 back in my account. $1,600 that wouldn't be spent feeding people who decided I wasn't family." By evening, I was exhausted but oddly satisfied. I'd been productive in a way I hadn't been in years. Not productive for someone else, not scrambling to meet someone else's needs or expectations, but productive for myself. I was making dinner, just for me, a simple omelet that I could eat in peace without worrying about whether it was too salty or whether someone might comment on my cooking, when the phone rang. Lilia. I almost didn't answer. But something in me wanted to hear what she had to say, now that the initial cruelty had worn off. "Belinda?" Her voice was different now. Smaller, less certain. "Hello, Lilia. I think we should talk about yesterday. I might have been too harsh. Too harsh." As if banishing me from my own family was simply a matter of poor word choice. "I think you said exactly what you meant to say." "No, that's not. Look, I was stressed. Planning Christmas is overwhelming, and Marcus has been working such long hours lately. And the kids are so excited but also demanding. And I snapped. I waited for her to continue, but the silence stretched between us. Finally, she spoke again. "Are you going to say anything? What would you like me to say, Lilia?" "I don't know. Something. You're being so calm about this, and it's making me nervous." "Good," I thought. "You should be nervous." "I'm just trying to understand," I said carefully. "Yesterday, you told me I wasn't family anymore, that Marcus agreed with you, that the children didn't need my negative energy. Those seem like pretty definitive statements. I was upset. People say things they don't mean when they're upset. Do they?" Another long pause. I could hear her breathing on the other end, could almost feel her trying to figure out how to navigate this conversation now that I wasn't immediately offering forgiveness and understanding. "The kids have been asking about you," she said finally. "Emma wants to know if you're still coming to make cookies with her." There it was. The guilt trip I'd been expecting. Use the children, make me feel like I was abandoning them instead of being abandoned myself. "I think it's best if the children learn not to depend on me," I said. "After all, I might disappoint them with my negative energy." "Belinda, please, don't be like this." "Like what?" "Cold. Distant. This isn't like you." She was right. It wasn't like me. The old me would have already apologized by now, would have found some way to blame myself for the conflict, would have begged to know what I'd done wrong so I could fix it. But something had shifted yesterday when I hung up that phone. Something permanent. "Perhaps you don't know me as well as you thought," I said. "Look, why don't you come over tomorrow? We can sit down, talk this through like adults. Marcus will be home from work, and we can all discuss this together. I don't think that's necessary, but we need to figure this out. For the family." "Lilia," I said, my voice steady and calm. "Yesterday you made it very clear that I'm not part of this family. I'm simply accepting your decision." "That's not. I didn't mean it like that." "How did you mean it?" The silence stretched so long I thought she might have hung up. When she finally spoke, her voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. "I don't know." "Well," I said, "when you figure it out, you let me know." After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Powerful. Not angry, not hurt, just powerful. For the first time in 5 years, I wasn't scrambling to fix someone else's problem or manage someone else's emotions. I was just existing, on my own terms, and it felt wonderful. The next call would come soon, I knew. Probably from Marcus, trying to smooth things over, trying to get me to be the bigger person, trying to restore the peace by asking me to absorb Lilia's cruelty and pretend it never happened. But I was done being the bigger person, done absorbing other people's cruelty. For the first time in years, I was going to be exactly the right size, my own size. And that was enough. 4 days passed in blessed quiet. No frantic calls about babysitting emergencies. No requests to pick up groceries because Lilia was swamped. No last-minute invitations that felt more like obligations. I spent those days reading books I'd been meaning to get to for months, organizing my closet, and actually enjoying my morning coffee without checking my phone every 5 minutes. On the 4th day, December 1st, I was repotting my orchids when the phone exploded. The first call came at 9:47 a.m. Lilia, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. "Belinda? Oh my God. Belinda, please, you have to help us. Something terrible has happened." The bank called and they said. She was hyperventilating. I set down my gardening trowel and listened as she tried to catch her breath. "Slow down, Lilia. What did the bank say?" "They said we missed our mortgage payment. But that's impossible. We've never missed a payment. Never. Marcus set up automatic payments years ago when we bought the house. There must be some mistake." My stomach tightened. I'd been wondering when this call would come. "Did you check with Marcus about the payment?" "He's at work, but I called him and he's as confused as I am. He said the automatic payment should have gone through like always. But Belinda, they said if we don't make the payment by Friday, they're starting foreclosure proceedings. How is that possible? We've owned this house for 7 years." I closed my eyes. 7 years. She actually believed they'd owned that house for 7 years. "I'm sure Marcus will figure it out," I said carefully. "But what if he can't? What if there's some mistake in the system and we can't fix it in time? What if we lose our house? Where would we go with the children?" The panic in her voice was real. Whatever else Lilia was, she genuinely believed that house was secure, that the payments had always been handled. Marcus had protected her from the truth so completely that she had no idea how precarious their situation actually was. "You should probably have Marcus call the bank directly," I suggested. "He's going to during his lunch break, but Belinda, I'm terrified. This house is everything to us. It's where we brought Emma home from the hospital. It's where Jake took his first steps. I can't lose it." After she hung up, I sat in my garden room surrounded by my plants, feeling an odd mixture of sadness and inevitability. This moment had always been coming. The only question was when. The second call came 2 hours later. Marcus this time, his voice tight with confusion and growing panic. "Mom, I don't understand what's happening. I just spent an hour on the phone with the bank, and they're saying our automatic payment was canceled. But I never canceled it. I would never cancel it." "That's strange," I said. "They said the account that was making the payments requested the cancellation last week. But Mom, I don't understand. The account that was making the payments, it wasn't our account." Silence stretched between us. I could hear him breathing, could almost hear the pieces clicking together in his mind. "Mom?" "Yes, Marcus." "The account number they gave me. I looked it up, and it's your account. Why would your account be making our mortgage payments?" I set down my coffee cup and looked out at my small backyard, at the bird feeder I'd hung last spring, at the garden I'd cultivated over 20 years of living in this house. My house. The house I owned outright. The house I'd worked 2 jobs to pay off early so I'd have security in my retirement. "Marcus, I think you know why, but I don't understand. When did this start? Why didn't you tell me you were still making the payments?" I thought. When I got the consulting work, when things stabilized, I thought the bank had worked something out with us. The pain in his voice was almost unbearable. My 32-year-old son, discovering that his financial security had been an illusion funded by his mother's retirement savings. "You were struggling," I said simply. "You needed help. But for how long? How long have you been making our mortgage payments?" 5 years. The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear him doing the math in his head. $850 times 12 months times 5 years. Over $50,000. "Oh my God, Mom. Oh my God. Why didn't you tell me it was this much? Why didn't you tell me you were still paying everything?" "Because you needed to believe you could handle it yourself. Because Lilia needed to believe you could handle it yourself." Lilia. His voice changed when he said her name. "Lilia doesn't know." I figured she didn't. She's going to, when she finds out. "Mom, What am I going to tell her? That was the question, wasn't it? What was he going to tell his wife when she learned that their beautiful house, their symbol of success and stability, had been a gift from the mother-in-law she'd just banished from the family? You'll figure it out, I said. But the payment. Mom, if you don't make the payment by Friday, we'll lose the house. The kids, Emma and Jake. Where will they go? I felt something hard settle in my chest. Marcus, I'm not making that payment. What? I'm not making the payment. I'm done. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. But Mom, this is our home. This is where your grandchildren live. You can't just let us lose our house because you're mad at Lilia. I'm not mad at Lilia, Marcus. I'm done with Lilia. There's a difference. This isn't about Lilia. This is about me and the kids. Please, Mom. I know Lilia said some horrible things, but don't punish us for her mistakes. Don't punish us. As if maintaining boundaries was punishment. As if refusing to enable was cruelty. Marcus, I said quietly, for 5 years, I have paid your mortgage. I've babysat your children every weekend. I've picked them up from school, taken them to doctor appointments, bought their school clothes, funded their activities. I've done this happily, without complaint, because I love you and I love them. I know, Mom. I know. And I'm grateful. But yesterday, your wife called me to tell me I'm not family anymore. That my negative energy isn't welcome around your children. That you both agreed I should stay away. She didn't mean it. She meant it, Marcus. And more importantly, you let her mean it. You didn't call me immediately to contradict her. You didn't stand up for me. You waited until the next day to offer a weak apology and ask me to pretend it never happened. I was trying to keep the peace. At my expense. You kept the peace at my expense, just like you've been doing for 5 years. I could hear him crying now. Soft sounds that broke my heart, but I couldn't let heartbreak override my judgment, not anymore. What do you want me to do? He whispered. I want you to figure out how to pay your own mortgage. I want you to explain to your wife that actions have consequences. And I want you to decide whether you're going to be a husband who throws his mother away to keep his wife happy, or a son who stands up for the woman who raised him. That's not fair. No, I agreed. It's not fair. It hasn't been fair for a very long time. After I hung up, I sat in my quiet house and waited. The next call would come soon, and this time, I was curious to see what Lilia would have to say when she learned the truth about who had been keeping her dream house afloat all these years. 20 minutes later, the phone rang again. This time, Lilia wasn't sobbing. She was screaming, "You vindictive, manipulative bitch." Lilia's voice came through the phone like a physical assault. I held the receiver away from my ear and waited for her to exhaust herself. How dare you? How dare you hold our house hostage because your feelings got hurt? You're willing to make my children homeless because I said something you didn't like? When she finally paused to breathe, I spoke calmly. Hello, Lilia. I take it Marcus told you about the mortgage situation. Don't you dare act casual about this. You've been lying to us for 5 years. Making us think we could afford this house when really you were just setting us up to control us. I was helping you. Helping? You call this helping? You were manipulating us, making us dependent on you so you could hold it over our heads whenever you wanted something. I found myself genuinely curious about her logic. What exactly did I want, Lilia? What did I hold over your head? Access to our family, time with the grandchildren. You bought your way into our lives. I was invited into your lives. At least I thought I was. And now you're going to destroy everything because I told you the truth about how we really feel. The truth about how we really feel. There it was. Finally, the admission I'd been waiting for. So you meant what you said about me not being family. A pause. When she spoke again, her voice was slightly less hysterical but no less angry. I meant that you're suffocating us. Always showing up. Always inserting yourself into our business. Always acting like you know better than we do about our own children. When did I do that? Constantly. Like when you took Emma to get her hair cut without asking me first. I remembered that day. Emma had gum stuck in her hair, and Lilia was at her book club. The child was crying, embarrassed to go to school looking like that. I'd taken her to my salon for a simple trim to remove the gum. She had gum in her hair. You weren't available. That's not the point. The point is you made a decision about my daughter without consulting me. You overstepped. I see. What else? What else? How about the time you bought Jake those expensive art supplies because I told him we couldn't afford them right now? You completely undermined my parenting. That had been Jake's birthday. He'd wanted art supplies for months, had been drawing on everything he could find: napkins, the backs of bills, margins of newspapers. When Lilia told him they couldn't afford art supplies, I'd seen the disappointment on his face and quietly bought him a small set. He wanted to draw. That's not your decision to make. I'm his mother, you're right, I said quietly. You are his mother. Just like I'm Marcus's mother. What's that supposed to mean? It means that when you attack me, you're attacking your husband's mother. When you exclude me from family events, you're excluding the woman who raised the man you married. When you tell me I'm not family, you're telling Marcus that his family doesn't matter to you. This isn't about Marcus. Everything about me is about Marcus, Lilia. I'm not some random woman who inserted herself into your life. I'm the mother of your husband, the grandmother of your children. When you decided I was expendable, what exactly did you think that said about how you view the people Marcus loves? Silence. I could hear her breathing, could almost hear her trying to formulate her next attack. You're twisting this around, she said finally. You're making me sound like the bad guy when you're the one who's been secretly controlling our finances for years. You're the one who's willing to make children homeless over hurt feelings. I'm not making anyone homeless, Lilia. I'm simply no longer paying your mortgage. There's a difference. We can't afford the mortgage without you. Then perhaps you should move somewhere you can afford. Are you insane? We can't just move. Emma's in preschool here. Jake has friends. This is our neighborhood, our community. We've built a life here. A life I funded. We didn't know that. Marcus knew. Another pause. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter, more calculating. If this gets out, if people find out we're losing our house because Marcus's mother cut us off, do you know how that will look? Do you know what people will say about you? There it was. The threat I'd been expecting. Lilia's favorite weapon. Public humiliation. Social pressure. The fear of what other people might think. What will they say, Lilia? They'll say you're a terrible person. A grandmother who put her own wounded pride ahead of her grandchildren's welfare. They'll say you're selfish and vindictive. Will they? Yes, and they'll be right. I considered this for a moment. Lilia, for the past 5 years, I've been paying your mortgage, babysitting your children, funding their activities, and generally making your life easier in dozens of small ways. All of this while you made passive-aggressive comments about my cooking, my clothes, my parenting advice, and my general presence in your life. I never said anything about your cooking. Last Thanksgiving, you told the entire table that traditional stuffing was too heavy for modern palates while looking directly at me. That was just conversation. 3 weeks ago, when I brought Emma that little dress I found on sale, you said it was adorable, but not really Emma's style, and then donated it to Goodwill the next day. How did you? Emma told you that? Emma asked me why I bought her a dress she wasn't allowed to wear. Silence. Last month, when I suggested that Jake might benefit from art classes, you said, some people think throwing money at everything is the answer, but we prefer to encourage natural development. Belinda. 6 months ago, when I offered to help plan Emma's birthday party, you said you preferred to handle family events yourself because too many cooks spoil the broth, and then asked me to pay for the bouncy house rental. Each example fell between us like a stone dropping into still water. I had kept track without meaning to, had absorbed each small cruelty and filed it away. I wasn't trying to hurt your feelings, she said finally, her voice smaller now. What were you trying to do? I was trying to. I needed space. I needed to feel like I could raise my own children without constant input from someone who did things differently when Marcus was growing up. So you pushed me away while taking my money. We didn't know about the money. Marcus knew. The silence stretched longer this time. When she spoke again, she sounded exhausted. What do you want from us, Belinda? Do you want me to apologize? Fine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. I'm sorry I was rude. But please don't take it out on the children. The children will be fine, Lilia. Children are remarkably adaptable. They'll adjust to a smaller house, a different neighborhood. What they won't adjust to is growing up watching their father choose between his wife and his mother over and over again. I'm not making him choose. Yes, you are. You've been making him choose for 5 years, and until now he's been choosing you. Because I'm his wife, and I'm his mother. That's different. Is it? How? She had no answer for that. After a long moment, I heard her sigh. The payment is due Friday, she said quietly. If you don't make it, we lose the house. I know. And you're really not going to make it. I'm really not going to make it. Even knowing what it means for Emma and Jake. Especially knowing what it means for Emma and Jake. They need to see what happens when someone treats their grandmother badly. They need to learn that actions have consequences. You're destroying our family. No, Lilia. I'm just no longer holding it together. After I hung up, I made myself a cup of tea and sat on my back porch despite the December chill. 3 days until the mortgage payment was due. 3 days for Marcus to figure out how to be both a husband and a son. How to stand up for his mother without destroying his marriage. I wasn't optimistic about his chances, but for the first time in 5 years, that wasn't my problem to solve. Thursday evening, Marcus appeared at my door. I opened it to find my son standing on my porch looking like he'd aged 10 years in 3 days. His usually neat hair was disheveled, his shirt wrinkled. His eyes red-rimmed from exhaustion, or tears, or both. Behind him in the driveway, I could see his car running, as if he wasn't sure he'd be staying long. Hi, Mom. Hello, Marcus. Come in. He followed me into the living room but didn't sit down. Instead, he stood near the window, hands shoved deep in his pockets, staring out at my small front yard. The payment is due tomorrow, he said without preamble. I know. I've been to 3 different banks today, trying to get an emergency loan, a line of credit, anything. He turned to face me. Do you know what they told me? I waited. They told me that with my credit history and current income, I don't qualify for a mortgage on that house. I never qualified. The only reason we got approved 7 years ago was because you co-signed the loan. That was true. Marcus had been so excited about the house, so eager to give Lilia the home she wanted, that he'd glossed over the financial details. When the bank required a co-signer, I'd quietly stepped in without Lilia ever knowing. I see. You've been carrying us this whole time, haven't you? Not just the payments, but the entire financial foundation of our life. I moved to my favorite chair and sat down. You needed help. I needed help. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Mom, I've been living a lie for 7 years. Playing house in a home I couldn't afford, with a lifestyle I couldn't maintain, all funded by my mother's retirement savings. It wasn't supposed to be permanent. Wasn't it? He finally sat down, collapsing into the chair across from me. Be honest, Mom. Did you really think I was ever going to be able to take over those payments? Did you really think my consulting business was going to generate enough income to cover an $850 mortgage, plus all our other expenses? I considered his question carefully. I hoped it would, but you didn't believe it would. I believed you needed time to figure it out. And what if I never figured it out? What if 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you were still making our mortgage payments? What then? I didn't answer because we both knew the truth. I would have kept paying. I would have depleted my entire retirement fund to keep my son and grandchildren in that house, to preserve the illusion that Marcus could provide for his family the way he thought he should. Does Lilia know? I asked. About the co-signing? Marcus shook his head. I couldn't tell her. When we were applying for the mortgage, she was so excited about the house, so proud that we could afford something in that neighborhood. If she'd known I needed my mother to guarantee the loan, she would have been embarrassed. She would have been humiliated. And she would have blamed me for not being successful enough, financially stable enough, man enough to provide for my family without help. I studied my son's face, seeing clearly for the first time how much stress he'd been carrying, how much shame. So you let me carry the burden instead. I didn't mean for it to happen that way, but you let it happen. He was quiet for a long moment. I've been thinking about something you said on the phone, about me choosing between being a husband and being a son. And I think I've been choosing wrong. My heart did something complicated in my chest. Marcus, no, let me say this. I've let Lilia treat you badly for years because it was easier than dealing with the conflict. Every time she made one of those comments, Every time she excluded you or dismissed you or made you feel unwelcome, I told myself it was just her way. Just stress. I don't know. I made excuses because confronting her felt harder than letting you absorb her cruelty. I felt tears prick at my eyes, but didn't let them fall. And the thing is, he continued, I told myself I was protecting my marriage, but really, I was protecting myself. From having to choose, from having to risk Lilia's anger, from having to be the kind of husband who sets boundaries about how his wife treats his mother. What are you going to do? He took a deep breath. I'm going to tell her the truth. All of it. About the co-signing, about how long you've been paying our mortgage, about how we never actually qualified for that house on our own. And I'm going to tell her that if she wants to save our marriage, she needs to apologize to you. Not a fake apology, not a sorry you got hurt apology, but a real acknowledgement of how she's treated you. And if she won't, then I guess I'll learn what's more important to her, being right or being married. We sat in silence for a few minutes. Outside, the December wind rattled my windows, and I could hear the neighbor's dog barking at something in their backyard. Mom, Marcus said finally, even if Lilia apologizes, even if we work this out, I can't ask you to keep paying our mortgage. I know. We're going to lose the house. I know. The kids. They're going to have to change schools, leave their friends. Lilia's going to be devastated. Children are resilient, Marcus. They'll adjust to a new house, a new school. What they won't adjust to is growing up in a home built on lies and funded by guilt. He nodded slowly. I keep thinking about something else you said. About me being the kind of son who stands up for his mother. I don't think I've been that son for a long time. You can start now. Is it too late? Have I already lost you? The question hung between us like a bridge neither of us was sure would hold our weight. I looked at this man I'd raised, this son I'd loved through every phase of his life, and I saw something I hadn't seen in years, genuine remorse. You haven't lost me, Marcus, but I won't go back to the way things were. I won't go back to walking on eggshells around your wife, pretending her cruelty is kindness, accepting scraps of affection while funding your entire lifestyle. What would need to change? Everything. Your wife would need to treat me with basic respect. You would need to stop expecting me to solve your financial problems while pretending I don't exist when it's convenient. And both of you would need to acknowledge that I'm not just the family bank account. I'm a person with feelings who deserves better than what I've been getting. Marcus was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry for all of it. For taking your money, for taking your time, for taking your love and giving you nothing but stress in return. You deserved better from me. Yes, I said simply. I did. Is there any chance you might consider making one more payment? Just to buy us a little time to figure out next steps? I looked at my son, at the hope and desperation warring in his expression, and I felt something settle definitively in my chest. No, Marcus, I'm done enabling this situation. The payment isn't my responsibility anymore. He nodded, tears finally spilling over. I understand. Do you? Do you really understand that this isn't about punishment or revenge? This is about me finally refusing to participate in my own mistreatment? I think I'm starting to. After he left, I sat in my quiet living room feeling oddly peaceful. Tomorrow the payment would be missed. Tomorrow the foreclosure process would begin. Tomorrow my son's family would start facing the consequences of choices they'd been making for years, and for the first time in 5 years, none of that was my problem to fix. But something had shifted in that conversation with Marcus. Something that gave me hope that maybe, just maybe, he was finally ready to be the son I'd raised him to be. The question was whether it was too late. 3 weeks later, I was arranging flowers in my living room when I heard voices in my driveway. Through the window I could see Marcus's car, and beside it, two small figures bundled in winter coats, Emma and Jake. I opened the door before they could knock, and Emma launched herself at my legs with the enthusiasm only a 3-year-old could muster. "Grandma Belinda, we missed you so much." Jake, more reserved at 5, hung back by his father, but his eyes lit up when he saw me. "Hi, Grandma. Daddy said we could visit if you wanted us to." Marcus stepped forward, and I could see he was nervous. "I hope this is okay. I know we should have called first, but—" "It's fine," I said, stepping back to let them in. "Come in out of the cold." The children immediately began exploring my living room as if they were seeing it for the first time. In a way, they were. The last time they'd been here, they'd been rushing through on their way somewhere else, never staying long enough to really notice their grandmother's space. "Grandma, you have so many books," Emma exclaimed, running her small hands along the spines on my bookshelf. "I do. Would you like me to read you one?" "Yes. Can Jake listen too?" "Of course." As I settled the children on my couch with a picture book, Marcus remained standing, hands shoved in his pockets. I could see he had something to say but wasn't sure how to begin. "How is the house situation?" I asked quietly while the children turned pages. "We're moving next weekend. Found a small rental across town, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, but it's what we can actually afford." "How are the children adjusting?" "Better than Lilia, honestly. Kids are adaptable, like you said. They're actually excited about having bunk beds in their shared room." I nodded. "And Lilia?" Marcus's expression darkened. "That's actually why I'm here. We need to talk." After the children were settled with snacks and a movie in my den, Marcus and I sat at my kitchen table. He looked older, more serious than I'd ever seen him. "Lilia and I have been talking. A lot. About everything. And she's angry. Angrier than I've ever seen her. She blames you for everything. Losing the house, having to move, the children changing schools. She's telling everyone who will listen that you abandoned your own grandchildren out of spite." I'd expected this. "What do you think?" "I think she's deflecting blame because accepting responsibility would mean admitting she was wrong, and Lilia doesn't do wrong very well." "No, she doesn't." Marcus was quiet for a moment, then reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I wrote something down because I wanted to make sure I said it right. He unfolded the paper, smoothed it on the table, then looked up at me. "Mom, I owe you an apology that's 5 years overdue. I let my wife treat you badly because it was easier than confronting her. I took your money, your time, and your love, and I gave you nothing but stress and disrespect in return. I turned you into the family ATM and then acted surprised when you finally closed the account." His voice shook slightly, but he continued. "I was a coward. I chose the easy path of letting you absorb Lilia's cruelty rather than standing up for the woman who raised me. And when you finally drew boundaries, instead of respecting them, I tried to guilt you into going back to the way things were." He folded the paper back up, his hands trembling slightly. "I can't undo the last 5 years, but I can promise you this: it will never happen again. I will never again ask you to choose between your dignity and your relationship with me. I will never again allow my wife to treat you disrespectfully in my presence, and I will never again take your generosity for granted." I felt tears building behind my eyes, but kept my voice steady. "What does this mean for your marriage?" "I don't know yet. Lilia and I are in counseling, trying to figure out if we can rebuild something honest. She's having a hard time accepting that her behavior contributed to this situation. She keeps saying you overreacted, that families fight and get over it. And what do you say?" "I say that families don't tell each other they're not family anymore. I say that if she can't understand why what she said was unforgivable, then maybe we don't have the foundation for a marriage I want to be in." The words hung between us, heavy with implication. "She may choose to end things rather than apologize," he continued. "And if she does, I need you to know that I'll be okay. The kids and I will be okay." "Marcus." "No, Mom, I need to say this. For too long, I've been afraid of losing Lilia, afraid of the kids growing up in a broken home, afraid of admitting that my marriage might not be as strong as I pretended it was. But you know what I'm more afraid of now?" I waited. "I'm afraid of losing you. I'm afraid of my children growing up without their grandmother because their father was too weak to stand up for what's right. I'm afraid of becoming the kind of man who throws away the most important relationship in his life to keep peace with someone who doesn't even respect him. The tears I'd been holding back finally spilled over. You're not going to lose me. Even after everything? Even after everything. But Marcus, I meant what I said before. I won't go back to the way things were. I don't want you to. I want better. For all of us. From the den, we could hear Emma giggling at something in the movie, and Jake's voice explaining the plot to his little sister. Normal sounds, family sounds, the kind of sounds I'd missed more than I'd allowed myself to admit. What happens now? I asked. Now I try to be the father my children deserve, and the son you raised me to be. Whether or not Lilia wants to be part of that is up to her. And if she doesn't apologize? If she can't accept responsibility for her part in this? Marcus looked out my kitchen window at the bird feeder I'd hung last spring, where a cardinal was perched, bright red against the gray December sky. Then I guess I'll learn what it means to put my children's well-being ahead of my own comfort. They need to see their father stand up for their grandmother. They need to learn that treating people badly has consequences. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the children's voices from the other room. Finally, Marcus spoke again. I know this doesn't fix everything. I know there's a lot of repair work to be done, but Mom, could we? Could we start over? Could you give me a chance to be better? I reached across the table and took his hand. We're not starting over, Marcus. We're starting from here, from this moment, with full knowledge of what we both bring to the table. And what do I bring to the table? A man who finally understands the difference between keeping peace and enabling abuse. A father who's learning to prioritize his children's character over his wife's comfort. A son who's ready to treat his mother like family instead of like a service provider. He squeezed my hand. And what do you bring? A woman who finally knows her worth. A grandmother who will love her grandchildren without sacrificing her dignity. A mother who's done enabling and ready to simply love. From the den, Emma called out, "Grandma, come see! The princess saved herself." Marcus and I looked at each other and smiled. She certainly did, I said. 2 months later, Emma and Jake were regular weekend visitors at my house. Marcus had filed for divorce when Lilia refused counseling and continued to blame me for all their problems. She'd taken the children and moved back to her mother's house 2 states away, which broke my heart but didn't surprise me. Marcus was renting a small apartment near his new job, a position with better pay and benefits that he'd found once he stopped, depending on my financial support to cushion his risks. The children visited him every other weekend and spent those Saturday nights with me. I was in my garden on a Saturday morning when Emma ran up to me, her small hands dirty from helping me plant spring bulbs. "Grandma, Daddy says we're family. We are family, sweetheart. Mommy says family has to live together." I set down my trowel and looked at this precious child, so wise despite her 4 years. "What do you think makes a family, Emma?" She considered this seriously. "I think family is people who love you even when you're sad, and people who don't say mean things, and people who share cookies." "That sounds exactly right to me." "Then we're definitely family," she said, throwing her arms around my neck. "Because you always share cookies." That evening, after Marcus had picked up the children, I sat on my back porch with a cup of tea, watching the sunset paint my small yard in shades of gold and pink. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Thank you for not giving up on us. For not giving up on me." I typed back, "Family doesn't give up. It just sets better boundaries." For the first time in 5 years, I went to sleep that night feeling genuinely happy. Not because I'd won some battle or proven some point, but because I'd finally learned the difference between love and enabling, between family and obligation, between generosity and self-sacrifice. I'd learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to participate in your own mistreatment. And that had made all the difference. Now I'm curious about you who listened to my story. What would you do if you were in my place? Have you ever been through something similar? Comment below, and meanwhile, I'm leaving on the final screen 2 other stories that are channel favorites, and they will definitely surprise you. Thank you for watching until here.